So 15 years ago, the term big data wasn't a thing. But now today, it's this buzzword that's synonymous with smart business and informed thinking, decision making. Business, governments, universities, so many people are rushing to take advantage of this huge phenomenon. And later today, we're going to hear about some of the things that you can do with big data, but I wanted to start by offering a different perspective. I want to talk about how big data relates to our privacy. So what is big data? Well, it really is a buzzword. Big data is simply something that's bigger, faster and more varied than we can handle with conventional systems. So we're talking millions of data points processed in almost real time from a huge number of sources. So that probably isn't big data. It's not just numbers anymore, which are kind of neatly stored in rows and columns in an Excel spreadsheet. With the rise of social media, personal computing and wearable technologies, data has not only become bigger and faster, but it's more varied, more complex and more personal. It's made up of strings of text, YouTube videos, tweets, Instagram pictures, whatever you want, emails. Big data is now about your everyday habits. It's what you had for dinner last night and how many steps you walked on the way here this morning. What's really exciting and kind of scary about this phenomenon is our increased capacity to record, store and process huge amounts of this kind of information. Data that was once impossible to analyse is now within our reach, and not just within the reach of governments or of universities with a supercomputer, but it's within the reach of any individual with a computational device and an internet connection through a cloud service. And what this means is that an ordinary organisation is increasingly able to store, process and analyse really big data. They can put little bits of personal information together in ways that can inform their decision. And it's the mass of these little bits of personal information about you and about me that make big data so incredibly powerful. So for example, at my supermarket, the cashier always asks if I have a rewards card. And this gets me savings, and then in return for these savings, a database somewhere stores every single purchase that I make, along with the purchases of the millions of other cards holders. Woolworths, which is an Australian supermarket, has linked their rewards card database to insurance data. And what they've found is that people who buy milk and red meat are less likely to have car crashes than those who buy rice, pasta and alcohol. So what this illustrates is that because of big data, organisations can make incredible predictions about you from very little information. And it's from information that you might not know you're providing, or you might not think is important. The sheer mass of this information means that a company or an individual can paint a surprisingly complete picture of you and of me. The little details of your private life has the potential to become public at any moment, and privacy has become somewhat of an illusion. Except I'm sure none of you are surprised by that. Just Google big data and privacy, which I did a lot in preparation for this talk, and you're going to get hundreds of hits telling you that your privacy is under threat, watch out. Something like the guys in this comic, except unlike the guys in this comic, we don't seem to mind. So for example, again, every time I install an app on my phone, it asks for my permission to access my location, my camera, and who knows, whatever else. And when I agree to install an app, I know that I'm allowing a company to invade my privacy, to use my data. But I'm actually happy to sacrifice my privacy for the sake of using Google Maps and Instagram, for the sake of convenience and for the sake of social interaction. And I know that there are so many other people who, just like me, know that a company is using their data and are happy for that to happen. So my question is then, does this really matter? Does it matter if we have no privacy? Big data is so powerful and so convenient that we might be completely content or even just resigned to spend the rest of our lives under observation. But I'm not sure that we should be. We need to, at the very least, think carefully about the way we're using big data. And that's because big data may be changing who we are. So living in a world where you know that you can be observed at any moment changes your behaviour. There are a huge number of psychological papers that record effects on what people do when they're being watched. So we know that we behave well when we're under observation. We kind of behave according to the norms of our society. A culture of being watched might not be a bad thing. So again, for example, knowing that the food that you buy may influence your insurance premiums might mean that we make healthier choices. But then what happens to our sense of who we are in such a world? To our sense of being conscious, creative, choice-making individuals? Can we feel free and can we feel human in a culture where our likes and dislikes, our behaviours, the people we talk with are predicted by models to whom we're just a data point? So I don't really have an answer to this question. But what I do know is that right now, big data is a steam train powering forward into unknown territory, and none of us are laying its tracks. So even if you do think that big data is all good, the way we're currently collecting and using it needs more scrutiny. We need to step back from the data frenzy, and we need to ask ourselves if we're willing to live in the world that we're creating. And this is a world where the meaning of the term privacy and of what we say what we mean when we say I will change. So how will this affect our lives in the future? I think right now big data is completely unavoidable. It's already informing the decisions that we make and the products that we use and the people that we interact with. But it's my hope that by thinking very carefully now about the way we're using big data, in 30 years' time we can retain some control over who we are. Thanks for your attention.